How can you create and make the new if commitments that you set in place long time ago, and because they're still giving you comfort, are solid? They have to be more fluid. That don't mean to say that they will collapse necessarily or change, simply that there is openness for there to be an evolution of them.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our June Zach Chat. And following on from last month, brilliant and essential conversation around the new elevated abilities that we now have, both individually and collectively, to manifest more consciously and successfully. It feels as though many of us are now also experiencing, on the other hand, life through a very new lens of uncertainty. So, although this uncertainty may be causing great concern or even instability for many of you, I have a feeling, Zach, that your eagle's perch perspective may be able to bring a great deal of comforting light, understanding, and reassurance today to people who are experiencing various things in all of life's different arenas. I was also reminded recently of a quote from Tony Robbins that stayed with me for decades, and it's, "The quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty you can comfortably deal with." I have a sense, Zach, that just as you did last month with manifestation, you may well take our understanding of uncertainty to an entirely new level today. And before I go on any further with questions, I'd just love to welcome you. A huge welcome to you, Zach. We are so grateful to you for joining us so regularly and sharing all of your wisdom and, very importantly, your joyful way of being. Welcome.
Welcome, my dears. Welcome.
Shall I continue with some questions?
Let's get started. Haha. Eager to get going. Yes.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Zach. Zach, many people currently feel as though the structures that we're so used to are rapidly changing. They're creating profound collapses within the structures that we're used to living within. Most of our listeners are aware that we need this level of breakdown for humanity to break through. But could you share more about the role of uncertainty within this phase?
Yes. We have been talking, just like many others, about this for some time, have we not? And yet this specific situation regarding uncertainty is quite heightened in the masses at this particular moment in time. Indeed, certainty in all things is, of course, a construct. Life is always in flow. Life is always changing. As you know, different Hazel, always enjoy saying and advising, allow change to change you. However, there is a great comfort in certainty for many people. You do get many adventurous souls, spontaneous souls, who having certainty as the, let us say, goal in life is not theirs. And yet for many people, it brings comfort. When you have certainty, you have a way of planning for the future. You have a way of taking stock, of having breathing space, having all of these things. And this brings a comfort to it. However, notice there is a time to plan, time to do all of these things. Time is speeding up. We've spoken of this for a long time now, and people are feeling it in their lives. And therefore, this is part of the uncertainty around uncertainty. There is a feeling of not enough time, of the ground moving beneath your feet, of change happening so quickly. So even though it is not necessarily for everyone regarding complete uncertainty, it is a feeling of trying to catch up with yourself, not having the time to fully be able to digest what is going on in your world and to plan sufficiently. So far, so good, my dear. You understand this concept?
Yes, absolutely. It's the trajectory that these changes are bringing into our lives that I think is concerning people.
Therefore, if you had all the time in the world, uncertainty is not considered a problem because you plan, you put in place, and you say, well, if things happen, if the ground shifts beneath me, that is not too terrible because I had plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
Now, with time moving so quickly, this is pushing humanity to live far more in the moment, just as nature does, just as animals do, just as they used to do long time in humanity's history. When you are living in the moment, there is indeed a requirement for greater clarity within. This means that the reactionary, the quickness, the response that is given is coming from a place of equilibrium, coming from a place where everything is already within you. If you are in a little bit of a equivocal state within you and you are out of equilibrium, it is natural. Uncertainty can bring levels of induce fear, induce concern, induce worry. Reason being, when situations arrive, suddenly you feel out of your depths, not knowing how to respond, confused, all of these things. This is one of the reasons why self mastery and others, such as myself, are here to share with everybody. So that in these times of uncertainty, what you can do is you can count on yourself. You are in a situation where, with time speeding up, when things change around you for good or all the things that are not expected or not wanted in your life, you have the ability to have resources within you, immediate resources, to respond in such a way that is in your favor and in others for betterment for all. Therefore, this role, as you say, the specific of uncertainty is really coming up front and center in people's lives.
Mm.
And the more it is coming up, the more it is asking if you are feeling very uncertain in your world. The first thing to do is check in on yourself. Where am I with my equilibrium? Am I really in a position where whatever happens in my life, I can respond in a way that is meaningful and for betterment? Now, of course, that opens up a can of worms. Does not different, Hazel, because
Yeah.
naturally in the modern world, not many people will say, I am completely there. But if you check in with yourself, you can start to get a sense and feel. This quote that you said in your introduction to our
Yeah.
chat, different Hazel,
Mhm.
uh, has depth because when it is talking about quality of life, it is talking about the enjoyment within your life. And the more you are in a state of this self sufficiency, of this equilibrium within, of understanding self, then you are in a position to give out to the world as well, to be able to respond, to be of support, to be of light, to be of, let us say, optimism. Understand, yes?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that moves on really well to my second question, because you've been speaking about humanity moving into a far more conscious and creative relationship with reality itself. Is the collapse of certainty actually inviting people to participate in life in an entirely new way?
So this idea of collapse of certainty, such a human concept, isn't it? We like
Yeah.
it very much. People think of, like a mudslide down a hillside, this collapse of certainty, as if certainty was ever such a thing that was so solid.
Yeah.
What you're starting to become aware of is the reality of certainty, is actually what certainty really is control. Control within your own life. Now, many of you ears pick up at this moment. What's he talking about? Control, certainty. If you think about it, if you think about your own life and certain things that you may feel quite certain of, These are things that maybe are very, very close to your heart and you have a control over. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it is in a relationship. Maybe you have a partner and the level of certainty has come from a formal commitment, such as a marriage or other. Maybe you are committed to the place that you are living. Maybe you have purchased that place with a mortgage or other. This gives feelings of certainty, or at least the notion of it, because you have controlled a situation which is telling your heart, telling your mind, telling yourself, now that I have made this commitment, now that I have put certain structures in place, this is how it will be until I change my mind, until my heart is different, until I make the change. Control. Understand? Yes?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Now, control is not a dirty word, as lots of people think of it. We are not talking about the control with about coercion. We are simply talking about people taking control in their life. It can be as simple as controlling the foods that you put into your mouth, the types of water that you drink, the places that you go. It is different from choice. Do not get confused, choice and control.
Mhm.
However, there is a definitive part of your personality making your choices into your controls. Okay.
Mm.
Now, it is not that all of this structure will fall away, as you say, collapse to such a degree that you wake up one morning and say, all of these things that I have chosen, that then I put control over, that I then have certainty of my life, are all gone. We are not expecting this. What we are expecting, and in this regard, as you say, of reality, is as many, many people awaken to the true sense of themselves, a being, yes, that has a physical body, that is far more in flow with the universe, far more in flow with energy, far more in manifestation mode. All these things that we have been talking of in Deepy Dive and Last Chitty Chat, all about the creativity. You cannot truly, it's the physics of the thing. Haha. You could call
Yeah.
it, some people call it quantum physics. Haha. I'd simply call the spiritual physics of all of this. You cannot desire as humanity, as the earth does, to be in a situation of pure creativity, of sizzling energy ready to come through, whilst also holding on to an outdated version of control. You understand? How can
Yes.
you create and make in the new if commitments that you set in place long time ago, and because they're still giving you comfort, are solid? They
Mm.
have to be more fluid. That don't mean to say that they will collapse necessarily or change, simply that there is openness for there to be an evolution of them. You understand? Yes.
I do. It's as though we're continuously realigning with the frequency that we're reaching.
So you could think of how the world changes. You could imagine, let us use a very, very simple analogy. Somebody absolutely adoring their home that is on an eroding cliff top. And all of their neighbors have moved away, okay?
Mm.
And yet, because their hearts is saying, I love this home, I committed to this home, this is where I live, they absolutely ignore the changes that are happening around, even hearing rumblings underneath their house, even waiting right until the very last moment to leave. Okay? Now,
Hmm.
we are not expecting this particular analogy to be happening left, right, and center. Do not worry. We are not being very literal. Simply, we are saying, you can imagine, the friends and the family that is saying to them, please, please, please do not put yourself in danger. Please leave. Okay? However, the new flow, the reality, if you could do that instead, would have envisaged a time that this would happen and actually be making the means of a different type of life away from it. One that has the openness to be even better than the one that they enjoyed so much upon the
Hmm.
cliff top. You understand? Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And therefore, this, let us say, shifting, changing relationship with the true idea of certainty and uncertainty is asking yourself, where have I put on maybe a little bit too much control in my life? Where is it that I can simply allow myself to be open to the possibility that things may change? When you open to that and you open to the flow of the universe and being in this hotbed of creativity, with your heart moving into a place of joyful opening, it is far more likely all that you will be attracting in is for this progression, for betterment for self and other. If, however, and this is very understandable with people, this is not judging anybody for feeling this way. If, however, instead there's levels of fear and a grappling hold and saying, no, I will not let this go, this is what the universe is feeling from you. This then, when the uncertainty comes, when collapses do happen, suddenly you do not have your equilibrium anymore. Suddenly you are not in a place to respond in a way. You have taken the time element, the time that you do have remaining, away from it. And suddenly you have to be in reactionary mode. Now, this is very black and white. It is not the same for everyone, of course. However, this is a generalization just depicted in such a way to understand the connection between control and certainty. When you start looking on it, maybe ponder on it, maybe wander the lanes of wonder, thinking about it without berating self in any way, you can start to unpick areas and see where you may have too tight a hold. Loosening the hold does not mean that it will all collapse. It will simply allow flow through those aspects of your life as well. Understand, yes?
Oh, yes, so much in there, Zach. Certainly this certainly. Certainly this reflects your mantra, allow change to change you. And it's just, as you say, just letting go of the control of things that are becoming outdated so that we can move with the new flowing in and navigate the obstacles that perhaps seem to create a feeling of uncertainty, but actually are some kind of signpost to help us make that next step. Would you like me to move on to the next question? Because it really does flow. In a world becoming increasingly fast, artificial, and technologically driven, what would you say are the qualities within human consciousness that become even more important for us to cultivate now?
Knowing oneself. And here we are talking the personality self, not just the soul self. Many times people get confused when they hear one, such as myself and others, talking of knowing oneself. They think this means going off on a retreat, going off into a hermitage and really looking deeply, deeply within. And of course, that is very, very useful for many people. However, knowing oneself is about honesty and truth. It is about saying to self, where are my strengths, where are my weaknesses, and accepting it all. That does not mean to say accepting it in a way of saying, oh, well, this is how I am. Accepting it in the moment of saying, okay, these are areas maybe I need help with, and these are areas where I can help others with. When you really truly start to get on board with the honesty of knowing self in the personality form, and remember, the universe is learning from you constantly. You are inspiring the universe. There is nothing wrong with having a personality. This is why people have so many different lives. If a soul came in and all it did was become the same soul time and time again, all the universe would be doing is regurgitating, the same thing. Therefore, we would say, really celebrate who you are in this moment, whoever that person is. And in that way, in the knowing of oneself, what happens is you become far more centered. Now, this is very different from grounding. Very useful to have grounding too. The more centered you become, the less you are, a bit like a boulder in the middle of a stream, different from a little pebble that could be picked up by the currents. the more centered you are, the more awareness you have with so many different things, which
Mm.
are either intentionally or unintentionally swaying you in this direction, that direction. The more you know yourself, then you know the expression, know your mind, my dear.
Yeah.
I would say, know your heart. Know who you are.
Mm.
This way, you can still be part of the modern world. It is far too enmeshed in all people's lives all over the world, technology and all of these different things, and also being so aware of lots and lots of different people's and groups' opinions and thoughts and perspectives. There is so much to rattle your cage, you could say. Not like it used to be many years ago, where you could be quite solitary, or those who are very much within your vicinity with their opinions and so forth may come mainly from your own communities and other, which in itself was not very helpful because you did not get the whole uh, diversity of all thought and action. However, in the land that you are living in now, and of course with technology and other, which can disrupt your energetic field, disrupt your nervous system, and other, it becomes more and more important, aside from all of the other things that we talk of in this chitty chat, just to be very specific, if there's one thing that you do, is you get to know yourself. This will also help with everything else we've been speaking of regarding understanding self, control, uncertainty, and all these things. This is very different from times of going in and saying, oh, yes, I have a wound here. I have pain here. This is something that is still bothering me. These things are all still true. This is about recognizing and then accepting self. Uh, Very, very simple to say, not so easy to do. Accepting self going hand in hand with pure honesty. Now, that can be very, very hard for people. They can start to see things a bit like a true reflection in a mirror that maybe they have ignored for a long time, or vice versa. You might also discover things that other people may have reflected to you and you've never truly seen in yourself. This is not a practice for bigging you up or bigging you down. It is simply saying that when you get to know yourself, if you do not know yourself, it's so much easier to be swayed by all the currents. Or what are they saying? What are they saying? That is what I believe, and this is how things are. And you could call it a weakness, not just in your energetic field, but a weakness in your character. Be true to who you are. Be true to what you feel. And it is no problem to disagree within yourself. It is up to you if you disagree outwardly with people or groups or situations or whatever else. But actually, within yourself, be honest with self. You can say, well, even though this person that I really respect or blah, 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 but I actually disagree because I feel this.
Mm.
And listen to yourself. Because the more you do this, the more you take things deeply in and you are not living on the surface. A bit like the old expression of when someone is shallow or deep. But this is a new way of looking at it. Does this make sense to you, Magdi?
Oh, it absolutely does. It really speaks to emotional authenticity, to really know yourself well enough to be able to be authentic and in also in deep relationship with your own heart's intelligence. Oh, Zach, that was really, really useful.
Before you go on to the next
Mhm.
question, just to say as well, because this is chitty chat, because we're being quite specific, there were many, many other things, of course, and everything else we've been speaking of. Uh, but also, do take time away from these technologies. Give your energy system time within each and every day, within the night time, and so forth, to be able to come back fully to itself. It puts so much more pressure on the energetic field than people ever realize. And that, as I say, you are living in the modern world. There is not enough room in the mountains for everybody just to leave their cities and go to them. So that is not the answer. The answer is finding a way to live in your modern world that is helpful, healing, and healthy for you. And one of these ways is habit forming of spending some time away. Yes, we could say some time away in nature. Not everybody wants to do that. but
Mm.
just some time away where your own energy field, your own nervous system can recalibrate without it being infused with, let us call them man-made frequencies. Understand? Yes. Do
Yeah,
continue.
that was a brilliant addition. Thank you, Zach. Thank you for that reminder. I think we can squeeze in this last question. Is humanity being asked to let go of the illusion of certainty itself?
Well, this is really a summary of everything we have been seeing, is it not?
Indeed.
In fact, certainty and uncertainty are not real things, not when you are living in the role of life. It is natural in your modern world. You put in things to make things feel more certain, as we have said. And this is about control and control aspects.
Mm.
And these have been things to support you. Of course, if you think of a farmer or so forth, they very much need certainty. People are relying on them. People are, say, a farmer that is growing wonderful nutrients to go into your foods. However, the farmer is used to living with uncertainty because they do not know exactly what is going to happen with the weather, for
Mm.
example. They do not know exactly how their crops are going to grow. They do not know if nature is going to do something very random within that. Therefore, what the particular personality within each and every farmer has the ability to do is to have a range of certainty so that they have this equilibrium, so that when things happen, they have different sorts of resources. Now, of course, in your modern world, this is not always the case. For some farmers, things have gone too extreme.
Mhm.
However, for the majority, this is how they live. This is a good role model to have. Look at how the farmers work and do, how they are able to live a life that is still very, very full whilst living with a constant level of uncertainty, because anything that has a natural aspect like this on the outside, where there is levels of taken completely out of their control with the weather and so forth. Therefore, they are probably poster boys, poster girls, as you would say, for this way of living. So, therefore, if you're changing your viewpoint regarding what certainty is, it's saying to self, this true union within of how centered am I? How much do I truly know myself? How aware am I of my strengths and weaknesses? Therefore, should different situations in my life change, things that I would have equated in the past with this word, this
Yeah.
idea of certainty, my reactions, where would it be that I would respond in such a way where I would fly and soar and be very useful for self and others? Where do I already know that maybe there is we do not really want to use the weakness, but a lack of strength, so that you can already have resources around you.
Mm.
Just everything is in collaboration. You do not have to do everything yourself. This is not being the perfect human that has strengths in every area. That is not how humans are. The biggest strength in a human is understanding what they are good at and what they are not. And the
Mhm.
things that they find quite difficult to enlist, you could say, support or others, so that should times come, they can support them and vice versa. And then you get this web of support. And then the structures of certainty can really go into the background, because what you actually have is natural flow, always with this buoyancy, that there will always be the support needing to move from one transition to the next for betterment for all. Understand? Yes.
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Zach. That was such a great summary. Just finally, I'd love it if you could share with people who want to find out more about you and also your latest deep dive and meditation on manifestation. I feel as though your latest deep dive and meditation on manifestation will help people to deal with this shift that we've just been speaking about. Could you tell them a little bit more about it?
Yes, you can imagine it's a bit like being on one side of the bridge to the other, isn't it? On
Mm.
one side of the bridge, everything is falling away, and
Mm.
it can feel very differently. And yet, when you are upon the other, when you are letting go of this need of the control in the same way, and you are welcoming, opening your heart to things getting better for everybody, then you can really step into this field of manifestation. And of course, as you said, my dear, we have dedicated not only action plan in Chichi Chat, but deep, deep insight and practicalities, and further on in deep dive. And
Yeah.
then, of course, with the meditation to allow you to really respond within your energetic field, within the field of manifestation, to move through it in such a way that you have clarity, you have growth, you have expansion, and you can utilize this tool that is here for the whole cubeboard of your universe that is waiting. The universe is desiring to create at this time. This is its optimum, its zenith for this time of pure new creativity. And this can, of course, also support structures that are maybe wobbling, that are actually intentional to move into the new. It is not as black and white as in your physical world. People often think it is not everything has to collapse and everything has to be new. There is
Mm.
a marrying between the two. And whilst you're in this field of manifestation, you can be a part of that. You can support the growth, the new ways of being of what was, whilst also welcoming in the magic of what is new. Understand? Yes.
Oh, I do. What a wonderful way to end this that chat. Zach, thank you so very much. I'm sure everyone's feeling much more positive and inspired now. And, we look forward for you to join us on Patreon for so many more incredible teachings and transmissions from our beautiful cosmic friend, Zach. So thank you, Zach, for being with us. And thank you all for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you again in the future. Bye for now.
Goodbye, my dears. Goodbye.
Bye.